What's up, dog?
Hello, Benny. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you.
My old friend. It's really nice to see you, too. You are a sight for sore eyes.
Wow, what a beautiful opening sentiment. You as well. And I just want to say, for the folks at home, this is Matthew Melchionne. He's one of my oldest friends. Grew up down the block from me and taught me how to be cool.
I'll take it. I did teach him how to be cool. I've taught him everything that he knows.
That's you taught me a ton, but not from you weren't like, hey Benny, this is how you be cool. But I did just really enjoy your style and you as a person, and tried to mimic a lot of your patterns.
Thank you. I think it's so strange now that we're in our late 20s and early 30s. You can kind of look our deathbed basically middle age.
Yes.
If we're being realistic. I've only got about 20 years left on the meter. It's kind of interesting to reflect on who influenced you and who made a big difference in your life and which ways they made a difference in your life. And it's horrifying to learn when you were influential on somebody else as a 17-year-old. It's the worst fucking shit ever.
I think I'll also say that Matthew was a year ahead of me in school, and so I think, especially at a younger age, in middle school and stuff, me being a 6th grader and you being a 7th grader, massive deal. You know what I mean? We were on the same bus and everything, and I think that I would see you every day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's wild. I was earlier today. I listened to music by upperclassmen at my university, at my alma mater, and I'm much older than they were at the time that they made these indie rock recordings. But
the concept of upperclassmen,
yeah, and I was still just sort of oh wow, fuck. These guys really, nobody ever did it quite like the guy who was 8 months older than me.
When you're the people who were seniors when you were freshmen are still gods in a certain sense.
Yeah. I mean, there are people who you looked up to who as
you're the only one. No, you're actually my only idol I've ever had, and it's amazing. And you're also just kidding.
I was disgusting. I was gonna carry that forever.
I also don't think you were ever an idol. I don't mean to say that you're I don't mean to flatter you that hard, but I certainly did look up to you.
No, I feel like you said what she meant to say, and it's well taken. No, I mean,
you're certainly an idol.
I wanted to ask you, has this happened to you that somebody that you looked up to creatively as a young person, but was really just your peer, is out of the creative game or otherwise washed up?
Yeah, you. No, sorry. No, sorry. I would say that when I started in the Philly comedy scene, there were sort of this pantheon of really funny guys who only recently have started doing it again. And a lot of some of my favorite comedians from that time have quit or something.
Yeah.
And so that's been kind of weird to see them go, I don't know if I should be doing this. I'm like, what? You're you've been so funny to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you have that with some particular people?
I have peers who I thought had something very special, and I'm not angry or disappointed with them, but I feel sad that the world didn't give them the go-ahead. Sometimes people have a really kind of a great sequence of events in their career and their creative work wherein it's they always seem to be getting the go-ahead. And they're not really asked to compromise because it just seems like whatever they do is right. I'm sure, on the outside looking in, but
hitting some sort of on a Mario track, hitting some sort of booster.
Yeah,
getting a slap on the ass.
Yeah. That's that's a spectacular boon to have. I mean, these are most of the famous people that we know. For an artist like Lana Del Rey to make one album under a pseudonym and then invent the Lana Del Rey persona.
Oh, also Matthew's a musician. That's his primary art form. I'm catching them up. Usually I have comedians on, but Matthew is a music guy. I used to watch his band play in high school.
Yes. Legendary. It was called American Football.
Called Kid Lion.
It's like they kind of like they hit star mode. And of course, like, it's not always who you want. You know, there are lots of people that I kind of like think, I'm just like, dang, if only this person
hit star mode.
Yeah, if only this person kind of their wildest dreams came through, because I feel like I really wanted to see this person have, like, you know, a budget to put together a piece of media.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and why do you think, is it, these people are still so deserving of that? I don't know. I mean, is it that they're not set up in the right way, or they don't have the means financially, or there's all this, like, they're not in the right physical location? Like, what's the, you know? Truly one wonders.
I mean, you really drive yourself insane thinking about it. Those kind of like weird happenstances of like infrastructure, but also just like kind of like culturally delivering something that's going to be like very exciting and resonant with an audience. You really lose your mind if you think about it too much.
Yeah, if we all knew the answer of like, oh, they should have smashed the star button.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, why didn't he just make good music? His jokes weren't funny enough. He should have. No, everybody makes this mistake. You need to be funny.
It's funny you say that, but like me and the people that I know who are very funny, that we do say that. We're like, oh no, you forgot. Oh, you know that.
It wasn't rocking out hard enough.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the washed up rock star who just like no longer is able to rock as hard.
Yeah.
Their solos are like dong 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 dong.
It's like, oh, where do you leave it at?
But yeah, I mean, I circling back, and maybe you tried to escape this conversational path, but you as an icon for me in high school. I just wanted to touch briefly on. I mimicked your style. You used to, and I won't make fun of the two of us. You would tuck T-shirts into pants.
Listen,
and then I would do that too.
It was like pre-GQ. It was like a moment. I think. Well, I think it does kind of like influence. It does reflect on the sort of person that I am and have always been, which is just kind of like how can I tell? I'm thinking about how I should stick this together.
Iconoclastic.
Yeah, it's like all of these like little things of like how it should be. For me personally, it become so important, even though they're like really like immaterial to having good relationships and resonating with people. And, you know, throughout my life, I think there actually is like a degree of, you know, people who I have that particular effect on, where I really am like always like coming out hot with like how I think, what clothes I think are cool, which pieces of media I think are good, how the music should sound, what the way to talk is, like what's hot and appealing, you know, like very like high confidence, dogmatic statements about what I like and what I think is tired. And it's like a very imperious way, socially, for the people around me. And so, like, you know, all throughout my life, there are kind of people who are just sort of like, man, like some like stylistic trifle, like, you know, in music, I like delays, echoes. There's too many echoes on all of the fucking music right now. I don't want echoes on anything. It's so fucking corny. It's so fucking whack. What are you just trying to hide your melody? When you put echoes on your stuff, you just clap one time and it creates a groove for you. I feel like it's lazy and uninspired, and it's not the funk.
It's not the funk.
And then whoever had the misfortune of being in the room at that moment basically like has like internalizes that because I was 8 months older than them. And it's just sort of like when it's like really it's horrible. I've
internalized that opinion you had just now. I don't know enough about music. I've internalized it.
It's a freebie.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm like, sure, there's too much echoes in music right now. The way you say it and that yeah. But and I'm trying to walk the line of because I do mean to flatter you. I do mean to like build you up and be like you as a friend but also as like you were a sort of role model friend and a very influential figure for me. But I also don't want to make you too uncomfortable with going too flattering. But yeah, no, I think like you being in that space and being so dictatorial, but a lot of time you were right. You'd show me a song, and like I still had my own, because I'm not bringing like pure blank slate energy to these spaces.
Yeah.
You would show me a song, or you'd show me like a media property or something, and I would go like, holy shit, that thing does rule. I love this thing. How do you even find Dark Souls or whatever?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You showed me Dark Souls. You showed me,
shucks.
you know what I mean? J. Paul or whatever. Like some very cool stuff. You know what I mean? And then but I think too, you know, the credit of what you're saying just now with that dictatorial stuff, you also got my ass dressing like like a damn fool.
I just discovered Culture Club in my defense. I was like, boy, who's Boy George? Oh, he must be the coolest. But yeah, it's like
don't know what that means.
I
laughed like I did, and I tried to figure it out in my head as we went along, and I'm sure there was something to it, but don't know what Culture Club is or Boy George.
Let's just edit out that section, and we'll come back in when you say
no. No. As long as I'm honest about it, I don't mind. Yeah.
Let me think. It's sort of just like it's cool because like I think of like that sort of this sequence of personality traits of like, you know, if like I was like a class, you know, like my Disco Elysium Kappa type would be like aesthete, where I'm like very like keyed into these properties which give me like that specific sort of pleasure, like the pleasure relating to like beholding art, aesthetic pleasure, as opposed to like I don't know, frankly, sexual pleasure, the pleasure of eating food, sleeping, other sorts of pleasure. I think that like, you know, the pleasure of like you see some art is like it's a pleasure unto itself.
So you have more points in that category on your character.
Yeah. Like I might be like a little bit like over invested to the point where like something that's offensive like really drives me crazy, or I will sometimes infer ideologies and value systems from media which is pretty benign and naive.
Well, I think I see what you're saying. I think it is fair to still always derive ideologies from benign media because there's so many people involved and somebody, you know, it's still at least some sort of, you know, institution or somebody trying to make money. But I guess I clung to you a bit because you were one of the most unique people I had met. This podcast me complimenting my boy, my old homie.
Well, the suburb that we grew up in Pennsylvania, I have had some time to reflect on it. I had a conversation earlier today with a Swedish woman where I confided in her, you know, growing up in the suburbs, in America, it's easy to just like not appreciate that there are different types of white people. Like the difference is, like, you know what I mean? Like the difference between Kennedy and Kowalski isn't obvious.
Don't know Kowalski off the top of my head, but
as like a Pole, you know,
like a Polish person.
Yeah, a Polish name versus like an Irish name or whatever sorts of names those.
Oh,
are.
you're saying generic Irish versus generic Polish.
Yeah, like people like have all these sorts of last names, and like he's like I had no resolution on what they meant.
Gotcha.
As a child,
I thought you were pegging it to specifically like President Kennedy versus another famous person.
Yeah, yes. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
And she was Swedish, so she was telling me, like, you know, the differences between Germans, Swedes, Swiss, and French are obvious because there's like different languages. You've got like different faces. You know, she said like, I'm Swedish and French, but I really look quite French. And I'm just sort of like, yeah, very French. But I feel like we kind of like grew up in this like interesting zone where like, because we were surrounded by like all of these pharmaceutical groups, it attracts all of these like highly skilled immigrant technicians, like first generation.
There's a diverse area, but of a specific class of like scientists.
Yeah, and like and their children. So it's kind of like always surrounded by like, you know, just like there's like one Chinese kid. There are 3 Desi kids. There's 2 Ukrainian kids. And like all of like that kind of like multicultural zone, which is like the children of the scientists who work at Merck, Janssen, Aetna,
Simons,
Unisys. And then that kind of like corporate is like all built on top of like a mid-century like white neighborhood, which was basically designed to erase the ethnic differences between all of like the other sorts of white people. And so that kind of like that sort of, I don't want to call it caste system, but that sort of like demographic sediment process only kind of became clear to me upon reflection.
I'm sorry. I see how it's diverse, and I see how there's the historical homogenization of the white people in there. Where are you getting the caste system from?
Oh, I didn't want to use the word caste system.
Oh, you didn't want to use the caste.
Yeah,
okay.
I feel like maybe like sedimentary is like a better word.
Meaning, I understand the layering of the rock and layering of the people here. Are you saying that there's like the new generation is like on top of this old, like it's a bunch of old white people and then a bunch of new young science people?
Yeah, then like, you know, young
Gotcha.
science people and their children kind of like not in like one big sweep, but just like slowly sprinkling in on top and kind of forming like a kind of packed-in layer unto themselves.
Definitely. And then there's dinosaurs and shit.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Big dinosaur hit.
And dinosaurs always carrying on in the back of the class. They're horrible.
And so I see what you're saying, and I see how that relates to what I'm saying, where it's like many of the people that I did know were kind of maybe generic suburban white or like very much so the sort of people you'd see in a movie.
Very
like
John Hughesian.
Very prep. I'll agree with that based on vibe of the idea.
Oh.
You're gonna use a lot of words that I go sure.
Like breakfast club.
Yeah.
Just sort of like you kind of like, it's easy to imagine like that the sort of suburb as kind of like going on like forever backwards in time.
Yes. Yeah. Like as if the 80s was forever. Yeah. And it's like, and then you're there.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm into Gundam.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they don't have Gundam on the Breakfast Club. You know what I mean? They don't have the kid who's like, I don't know, playing Dark Souls or whatever, you know? Or like got a fucking, doing like making their own album and like doing the art for it hand drawn of like Digimon with like sexy eyes or something.
Well, the technology changed. The technology changed for one.
Well, and that changed the type of kid, but also even the technology changing. That technology was there at that time. And people were still, you were one of the first people, you were adapted to it. You were one of the people doing anything interesting with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shit fuck.
It was Drexel University. I went to like a children's class. Before like, just like, you know, pre-college, they teach you how to use a music software program.
Oh, sure.
I say that I'm a musician, but I'm really not like an effortless musician. Like when I go and hang out with people who have studied jazz music and they study a musical vernacular, which is kind of about you sort of like blend in, you know, a bunch of classic songs, and you can kind of like read the other musicians and sort of blend in like a kind of like vernacular style. As strong as I am with like the mechanical process of playing my instrument, I'm not remotely good enough to hang with those people, and they hate my guts.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, because I'm not good enough, frankly. but it's like the developing the music craft really was a tool to more positively, not positively as like morally, but positively in terms of making statements, positing my my little kind of like dogmatic gripes about how it ought to be. You know what I mean?
You saw the system as being changeable and like could be done a different way, your way.
Maybe not. Maybe just like more like, I think because of the uniqueness of our perspective in the suburbs, which is that you both seem to, you know, just kind of like the humans emerging from like the primordial flame and Dark Souls. They just kind of like stood up and was like in the suburbs. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I feel like you spawned there. You feel like a spawning ground for people.
You sort of like spawn there. You just like walk. You sort of just like walk out of like a door one.
It's Tutorial Island.
Yeah.
Learn how to fish shrimp or whatever.
You know,
that's a RuneScape.
You're like you're in this zone, and people don't quite get what you mean when you've realized that, you know, this is like a classic one, but it's like Piccolo's black. You know,
it's actually green, but go on.
You know, it's like I kind of like, these are
Piccolo's. I say African American.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll come back to that because your mother very specifically didn't want me to say African American.
Yeah. My mother is like from like the West Indies islands, so like the Haitians, the people from Trinidad and Tobago,
yes,
Arubans, Guyanese.
Well, she explained to me to use the word black.
Yeah, but I guess like I personally don't take that seriously.
Oh sure.
Though I would actually say,
well, that's because I take Matthew's mom seriously.
Don't watch this. Take my mom very seriously. I take my mom very seriously.
But yeah, I don't know, yeah. Because she identifies as Haitian.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah. I think it's sort of like I feel like that's similar to maybe what I'm saying, where I'm just sort of to this sense that I was trying to express, where I'm just sort of like the world doesn't quite have like resolution for your ideas, and you might be standing someplace like slightly different than most people, and you kind of like have like a different read. These things are similar that maybe people don't have the context to think are similar. You know, to me, like, you know, Suku Congolese music, which is like a really flowery guitar music, and dance music, a lot of the guitar lines are like the same as like American football type guitar lines. Like if you had a multi-track of American football guitars and like a multi-track of like Pepe Calle's guitar player, whomever that was, and flipped them, those things would blend better than I think most people would be surprised.
This is a dumb thing I never done on the podcast, but I might take my contacts out real quick.
Keep
talking about that. And then here's a concept I'll give you in return real quick. Piccolo is black. Maybe some of those tribes are actually Dragon Ball. Maybe they're Super Saiyans. I don't know. Maybe some people in the Congolese.
I flew past. Oh, okay. That's not a great joke.
No, it's not. It's not. What race is Piccolo?
They're called Namekians.
That's what it is. I was thinking, what if some people in the world are Namekians actually?
Whoa.
Instead of Piccolo is black, but turns out. All right, you respond to that real quick.
Let me take that idea very seriously for a second. I'm not going to do that. I was just saying so. This has been circuitous. Picking up music became a way for me to express those random convictions that I imposed on the people around me. And that kind of feels a little bit more... that feels like a little bit more positive than being a fucking menace.
Yeah, instead of being sort of like forcing opinions, just kind of creating something and going and demonstrating that. Part part of why I'm identifying with this immediately is because that's how I feel about comedy a lot of the time. I have like very, very strong, rigid opinions about comedy that are more, I'd say maybe they're more flexible these days, but when I like previously I've been like, that shit sucks. Like that's special, it's horrible. And people are like, you don't know what it's like. It's hard to do stand up. You know what I mean? People are like, you don't know. And I'm like, no, I know that that's bad. I can, and like kind of like, but you don't want to like kind of the thing of like, oh, I know I could do that and do that joke correctly and better. It's like, well, it's a lot of, you know, you can do a lot of talk, but fucking show up, you know what I mean, and actually do it. You know
yeah,
what I mean? I don't know.
Which is, you know, massively difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I feel like we might be like a different medium, but there's like some like motivating thing in common, which is this sort of like insane misplaced conviction about how it ought to be. And you know, this
do you
is
think
like,
it's misplaced? Do you think it's incorrect?
mean,
Depends on the conviction.
True. I mean, broadly speaking, you know, if you want people to see things very differently and transform the world, organizing sound and pitch might not be the best medium. You know, it might be better to be some sort of, effective altruism has been completely discredited vis-a-vis the Sam Bankman-Fried's collapse. We're recording this on December 13th, 2022 to date this conversation.
Just days before the collapse of society. If you're reading this in the holodeck or holo cube or whatever the fuck.
It is like a massive insecurity where I'm just sort of like when I have friends who are musicians who rather than like you know, meditating on like what they like, you know, insanely think is right, I kind of see spontaneity in their practice and process. I'm kind of like, wow, it was really crazy of me to like connect my insane headstrongness about what's good and bad and interesting and boring and good for the world with songs. You know what I mean? That's like a weird connection to have made.
Interesting. I think that is where our fields probably differ. It's because I think like at the heart of like stand-up comedy it is an idea. The whole point of the thing is ideas. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing is ideas that you're specifically interjecting into the culture.
Yeah.
And so when there are big famous comedians doing transphobic material, it is like not only it is correct and accurate and good to go, that's bad. And it should be, and then to do it differently and well is a good thing. Whereas I think in music, I see what you're saying. I think part of it is also in music, there's a ton of really good, amazing stuff that is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there might not be as much good comedy.
Yes, especially like new. Like I bet you could find a new.
You can't really recycle comedy
song.
the way that you like recycle music.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't sample a motherfucker's joke. You can't. I mean, you can to some like you can riff on a play it out concept, but you can't like fully do somebody else's joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or it's less rewarding to just kind of revisit a common form.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know the medium, but you agreed with me, so I'm right.
No, I'd say yeah. Depends on how granular you go with form. You know?
Yeah.
If you're talking form in terms of like making airline jokes, then I actually do think it's like there's arguments to be made where it's like some people don't like that inherently. I like it as long as you have a unique joke in that space.
Yeah.
But to do somebody's actual individual joke is not good, you know.
Here's a question for you, and I'm going to couch that question within an anecdote.
Nice.
Having a conversation about Thanksgiving with one of my friends, and he was basically describing, you know, somebody talked about politics and his family kind of like got nippy with one another. And he described one woman who is a Hillary Clinton lifer and his brother, who kind of like has, I guess I would say, like leftist doomer politics that are kind of like influenced maybe by like Chapo Trap House or something like that. That broad constellation of attitudes and poses. And what my friend told me watching this is that he, without really having much of a dog in this fight, could read that he empathized with the Chapo perspective, not because of anything in particular. Doomerism is very deactivating, regardless of what, the people who make that media intend. But there's like a way where just like, that's sort of like just sounding like Rachel Maddow to kind of like marinate in her media is kind of like an outmoded pose. And whether or not the facts on the ground of like what's the best way to build a society, just like having like a unfashionable kind of outmoded political aesthetic, for lack of a better term, is kind of like disqualifying and boring.
Oh, for sure.
And it's kind of like, I think it kind of like, it sort of like dovetails like a little bit where like there's like, people in this sort of like this sort of like semi-permeable membrane between politics and kind of like ideating how the world ought to be, and then that semi-permeable membrane through like punditry, taste making, opinion, down to like the primary source of just like a cultural object, songs and jokes. It's like that's like a little bit of a continuum. Do you think about it as a continuum? Do you think like it's important to just like have like a new pose?
I don't think it's important to have like novelty in a pose, and I think it's just important to have a good one. Like, for example, I think Bernie Sanders has had a consistent political pose for his career, but it just has been a good one. To be fair, maybe at some point it swung into a fashion. But I think that his political pose, maybe it is swinging out of some fashion because now people have gone further left than his like. I see what you're saying, but I also think that I think that's not because of his. I think his pose is always great. I think why people are running past him a little bit is just like some disagreements with core policy ideas. And but I would say that like Bernie Sanders' tone and like everything like that, like the way he like tweets and everything, is always it's always good. You know what I mean? It's never cringy or bad.
Yeah.
Whereas I think certain other political pundits and everything have an inherent, maybe there's a cringe element to it just because of the way they're positioning themselves from a certain superiority angle, and it's not about whether it's in fashion or good or not. It's just that it is at its base level an annoying thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shit fuck.
Yeah.
Does that smart? Does that sound smart?
As smart as that smart.
Did I position myself as a good political pundit there? Yup.
It's like, yeah.
Funny podcast. Comedy funny podcast. Sorry, what?
Yeah. I feel like, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm
zoned out. Whoa, where am I?
I'm struggling to articulate. I'm trying to struggle to articulate this kind of like connection from this random conviction. It's like random convictions.
Shit.
To
not my whole.
The random conviction to like applying yourself to developing a craft, and then developing that craft, does that contribute to like a constellation of ideas that help people like imagine the world, and and it's obviously it's incredibly indulgent. It's incredibly indulgent, but I'm also kind of I sometimes think like I think of somebody like Tolkien writing The Lord of the Rings. I feel like the story with Tolkien that I've heard is that he nursed like this insane historical resentment of like the Christianization and Germanification of Britain, like literally 1,000 years ago, and he basically wrote the Lord of the Rings, to be like to fit in with like a pre-Arthurian mythic cycle. Like the sorts of characters that he used and the way that he sort of like built his world was sort of informed by his scholarly research of the sorts of stories that Britons told one another before whatever transformed them.
Like the Roman invasion or something.
Maybe it was Romans. Maybe it was
Roman
Normans.
Sure. Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm not so sure the dates, but this was like his thing. He kind of like wanted to like redress a historical insult.
Cool.
You know what I mean? It's actually
fun, yeah.
It's very like high-minded. You know, he kind of like had like a national project in like writing his like ridiculous fantasy novel, and
he was also a veteran of one of the world wars, I believe.
I think it would have been the First World War.
I believe so, yeah. And I think that influenced a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the idea of just like
the Balrog.
Yeah,
that was a German thing. They used to have those. He said, "What if that was underground?"
It's definitely like, yeah, it's like. And like a lot of our stories that we tell and a lot of our stories that our culture
Hitler
told.
Release them in like in German, like a translation, black and white footage. They were like, "That's the fight at Balrog," and then like they like comes out, and like just like they're all like doing this salute and shit. Anyway,
I can see it. I feel like that's basically somebody had that idea and made Wolfenstein.
That's probably for sure.
But like, you know, our stories have basically echoed that sense. Like Lord of the Rings is like works pretty cleanly as a metaphor for World War II, and he wrote it contemporaneously. Like, and fantasy novels before Lord of the Rings were not like that. Like the Worm Ouroboros is not like that.
What's that about? A damn worm?
No, it is. It is.
Should have gone to war.
It's very similar to the.
You want to write a good book? Go to war, dude. Sorry.
The Worm Ouroboros, I think, is after World War I, but before World War II, and it's like, it's interminable. It's really not a very good book, but influential, and it's really kind of like about a cycle of violence between adventurous, immortal aristocrats in a fantasy world, and you know, it doesn't have a Luke Skywalker type character.
Do you think that parallels to how like right before the 2001 like 9/11, there's sort of this in the 90s there was like culture was just doing well, and so we had certain like I don't know, Frasier or something. You know what I mean?
Very like comfortable, like affluent media.
Yeah, exactly.
Friends.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
The Worm Ouroboros is just a sitcom. It's a multicam sitcom.
That's a great idea. I would love a multi-camera sitcom called The Worm Ouroboros. He's like,
I play the worm. I don't know. I don't know what it's about.
Nothing's different. It's just more like 90s yuppies, but you just have to sit with it being titled The Worm Ouroboros the whole time. It's like, what does that mean?
I keep saying the Aurora Borealis. I would keep imagining the Northern Lights, but
you know the Ouroboros is the worm that is the snake.
Oh
eating its own tail.
yes. Okay.
What is it?
The worm version would be a worm kissing itself. Can it eat from both sides?
Ass
like 2
to
feet.
ass.
Is it ass to ass?
Ass to ass.
Nice. 69.
Oopsies.
I'm trying to get with a girl into 0-0. That's where we both do the Ouroboros pose, but next to each other. She's self-sucking, I'm self-sucking. But in the same bed.
I feel like I know a guy named Zizek who's very interested in this.
Is that true?
So yeah, it's like you know, like the mainstream media kind of like echoes, weirdly echoes like the things that are like about to happen. And like when we look at like all of our tech overlords, like the Elon Musks and Mark Zuckerbergs, a lot of like their kind of like most futuristic ideas are kind of like they get rich by basically like leveraging the new technology to do what was already happening, which is like people just like are going to point at one another in hierarchies. Well, now they're going to do it with a computer. There's $100 billion. It's like people are transferring money. Now they're transferring money with the internet. It's $100 billion. And so there's like this like real way that fortunes are being made. But those guys, once they have all their money and it's time for them to like envision, you know, their future, it's like they just are kind of like retreading sci-fi ideas. Like, you know, I feel like the metaverse.
VR. Yeah.
You know, it's like somebody's like, okay, so you watched Tron when you were a kid. That's really not what you're supposed to think about Tron. You know, it's like these are actually horrifying futures that you're envisioning. Peter Thiel had this one thing where he's like, we were promised flying cars. The future is disappointing. And it's like, nobody promised you flying cars. You just like looked at Futurama and the Jetsons when you were a child. Those aren't good TV shows. Not
Futurama. I was going to say Futurama slaps.
Yeah, not I should clarify. Not Futurama, the Matt Groening television show, but Futurama, which is an exhibition in the World's Fair in the 60s.
Oh, and that was
it's this industrial designer named Bell Geddes made this incredible how like the future is going to be. And so he was an industrial designer, so it's like, here's how the cars are going to look in the future. Here's how the buildings will look. And it's basically like Star Trek, the Jetsons, and then ultimately the actual TV show Futurama.
Well, he should have made it like accurate. If you're going to make a promise, you know what I mean? Might as well keep it.
I mean, we'll see if Elon Musk has anything to say about it. We will just be driving like ridiculous flying cars for like no reason. They're not better, and so it's like weirdly like.
My vision of the future is going to be that there will still be cars.
Okay,
that's a promise. Benny Feldman, 2028.
All right.
Sorry.
My vision for the future is 5'4", 36, 28, 45. Long blonde hair.
Yep.
2023.
And she can fly.
Count on it.
No, but I do like what you're saying about media echoing. And how did we get there originally? Tolkien, but Tolkien was an example.
Yeah, like I think I want to vindicate that like creative people having visions somehow changes the world in the long term, because we can look at like all of these like frankly like boring examples of just like, you know,
uncreative people with money like Zuckerberg.
Yeah, but like that's not Mark Zuckerberg's idea. That's like whoever directed Tron and like wrote that novel that turned into Ready Player One. You know, Elon Musk like making like the Tesla robot. That's just like that's Isaac Asimov. He's just like has like, you know, they're like these like sci-fi novels from the mid-century, and so, you know, does that mean that if I imagine like a psychotically optimistic future, you know, Gene Roddenberry style, if I imagine like a psychotically optimistic future, you know, a way where like
I watched Willy Wonka. I was like, I was promised a room made out of fucking marshmallows and shit.
Yeah.
I was promised a mushroom made out of candy.
Yeah, you know, when you're making this art, you're kind of like, sort of like, I'm not making art that reflects this world. I'm making art that reflects this imaginary world. Mm-hmm. And in this imaginary world that this art's coming from, which I hope will like create that world in some reverse process, nobody makes these like lazy jokes about trans people, because it's so obvious that it's like it's a bad joke and kind of mean-spirited, and that's not what we're about.
Wait, in this ideal world, nobody makes these lazy jokes about trans people? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's kind of like we're in like the worst timeline, but we're kind of like projecting art from the best timeline, so that people like behave better. I guess it's a little silly.
Well, no, but I think it is accurate. I mean, I do think I have that delusion of like, I would like to put out a stand-up special that is just like a bunch of good jokes about bugs. Yeah. And sort of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like kind of as like a demonstrate. It's sort of a demo to be like, hey, look, like, you can do it like this, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know. And partly
it's certainly a lot easier than like demoing like luxury communism.
That's part 2. But I see what you're saying, and I think but all good specials should impact the zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If for a musical album to be truly great, it should impact the zeitgeist, and that can be a slow process too, where it's like if you put out a cult classic still cults. You know what I mean? That a cult classic is still in the zeitgeist. Like I've been really into like certain stoner metal bands.
Yeah.
And I see they like have like, you know, like maybe a song will have like 500,000 to 1 million plays on Spotify, and it's like one of my like just an incredible song or something. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that this has had some whatever impact it's having. I'm so glad, and I'm trying to champion it so that
finds its people.
Yeah. So those people had their creative vision about how music and shit should be, and I'm like. And it's come to us, and we're going, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes, those guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we know how people react to art because we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can feel good. It's definitely like I mean, maybe I imagine like not everybody feels the way that we do. I wonder, how do you look at? I mean, I don't know any like local examples come to mind, but like do you like sometimes like comedians do this thing where, and they've been doing this thing recently where they nominally are saying similar things to you about like the kind of like the power of these jokes and this kind of like, you know, jocular oratory style that we've developed, and then
jocular oratory style.
Yeah,
that's
like,
when you're with an athletic chick.
Yeah.
What is this? One of those podcasts? Sorry. Yeah.
And then just like say like dumb stuff like
the
this,
thing I just said. Yeah.
like this comedian free speech absolutism. Like
yeah.
I intuit that you think that it's silly and a little bit petulant.
Of course, yeah.
Why are they so dumb?
They're I would say it's a combination of like not just dumb but like willfully ignorant, powerful, and like rewarded for it. So like you have these guys who are you know, a lot of them are also white dudes who aren't seeing consequences for saying those things and do still think they're just like funny inherently. And then when they say it, they get a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And like they're paid millions of dollars, some of these people, and like have sponsorship deals, et cetera, et cetera. And so they see the cycle where they're like, you can say whatever, it's just funny. I don't see an issue. You can just be like, bleh, and like make a assault joke or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, jokes about it. This, that, and the other thing. And like, and it's just like, yeah. And then they like, and then they sleep fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll admit to like having I will admit to like having like a few cathartic laughs during like Dave Chappelle's you know, mean jokes about trans women. Sure. You know, I chuckled with them. I was like, jokes aren't always going to punch in the way that you want them to punch. And I'm not going to disown those laughs, but I am going to say like it's seductive. It's seductive. And I'm going to like acknowledge that it's seductive, and why it's seductive is that it's pretty like gratifying if you're in a reactionary mood. And if you never leave that reactionary mood and you like never check yourself, you're never really kind of going to transcend that. How do you know how much money it would cost for you to change your mind about this?
$20.
$20? Really?
You go 20. Benny say you say an anti-trans joke. Here's $20. Woo! Yeah, how about there? Who are these alphabet people? Talking about
like
anyway.
Have you ever had that? Have you ever had the experience of like looking like at like meditating on like a big number and this being?
No,
like,
I would not. I would absolutely not.
Not?
No, no. If they offer me $100 million, I'm not doing anti-trans material.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not about, and part of it too, and like.
But
like,
maybe not like specifically like you walk back your opinion on like hurtful jokes, but like more like, have you considered?
I could change my opinion and go to some of these money routes.
Yeah,
that is like fully like a, like I'm not like, I don't know, like that is like a thing I could. I mean, you
can imagine that path.
That's like within reach. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Not millions of dollars, but like a path like that. Like you know what I mean? Yeah, for sure.
Do you more? It's more like there might be some moral blind spots, that we have that are like heretofore unrecognized. I feel like like ethics and morals are an ancient technology that get better and better, and I think it would be like my hover grandchildren are gonna float over to me and they're gonna say, "What the fuck was up, Grandpa? Why did this? Like, are you serious? Nobody thought that it was fucked up."
I know what you mean.
It's like nobody thought that it was fucked up when you were doing that thing you're all doing, and I'm just gonna be like, well, I mean, we were dimly aware that crude oil had the still living souls of all the dinosaurs, and we are causing them immeasurable agony by burning them. But I mean, it wasn't really real.
Yeah.
Like, if you were making like, I'm starting to like wondering like, how recalcitrant would I be if I was as I am now?
Well, you're saying this, and it's like, I see some. Let's put it the needle the furthest it could be.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen trans comedians.
Yeah. Who
are doing material that is men are like this, women are like this. You know what I mean? And I think
they would know. Sorry.
No, but it's like, but it's sort of the you can have people who identify as different. You know what I mean? You can have whoever, myself included. Just like if you make certain jokes that are like just reinforcing certain stereotypes about any sort of like classic structure that's like slowly being unlearned or re-examined in the zeitgeist. Like, I mean, I see stuff constantly about like black people are like this, white people are like this, men are like this, women are like this, trans men are like this, trans women are like this. It's like there's a constant classification and boxing and categorization that is occurring constantly, and people posturing in all these different ways.
Yes,
and it's like coming from everybody, and it's like that's obviously all not good and not going to last. You know what I mean? It's like like women be shopping, and it's like it's like
don't women aren't shopping.
That's my buddy. I'm not gonna do his joke. I don't mind. I was telling Martin Urbano joke. Just look up Martin Urbano.
My
Very
joke.
Funny.
The joke that I tried to tell is I haven't unlearned that, so I'm making sure that we're on the same. Furtively getting okay.
No, for sure.
By explaining the joke,
I'll tell. I will tell Martin Urbano's joke briefly. Look up Martin Urbano. He's got a great joke about like the Women's March or whatever.
Yeah.
Where they had like those the fences on the side is like, to keep them from shopping. It's like a great joke. his whole act is like he angles himself as like one of those like reactionary kind of like guys who so like, he's doing all that material but from like an ironic perspective. It's like, I'll show you something after.
That sounds really funny. I mean, like the premise of the joke, I guess the premise of like those jokes is to just let henpecked straight men blow off some steam by making fun of their horrid wives.
Yeah, well, and he does it from such a. I just want to give one more.
Yes, please.
It's like they're all chanting. You know what? I'll tell him after because I don't want to give away Martin Urbano's secret jokes. Yes, I do.
You can edit it. You can edit it out. Check this out.
I'll have him on the pod.
We'll just cut out there.
It's like they're all chanting in unison at the Women's March. Blah blah blah. Incredibly funny. But and that's and he's like, the point being, like, because he's doing that character the whole time, and he's positioning it as the people that make these types of jokes are normally shitty. The people that have this opinion.
Yeah. It's something. By connecting the punchlines to the setups, like all kind of like wrong.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
It's really satisfying.
it's really funny.
I think he's doing an hour called Apology Comeback Tour. Yeah. It's great. Okay,
that's excellent. Do comedians do like you are like a high concept comedian, you know?
Ooh.
You announce the concept.
Almost an hour in, and finally the compliments coming back. And we're rolling back.
You get what you give, baby.
Yep.
You get what you give.
Yep.
Don't let anybody tell you differently. You're like a high concept comedian.
Thanks,
a lot of the times during your sets, you announce what like the next sequence of jokes are going to be, and part of that, it's like you're doing something that's kind of challenging, because I feel like these comedians, like these tri-state Mucinex men comedians talking about the old ball and chain, they don't that's not my joke.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's good.
You
blew right past that. I was like, whoa, concept. Yeah.
It's a perfect way to describe it's a perfect way to describe a certain sort of person.
Yeah.
It's like, there are a lot of these jokes that you want to problematize, and that your community wants to problematize, is that they don't illustrate their concept. Or not, sorry, that's not what I meant to say at all. They don't announce their premise. The premise is unspoken. The unspoken premise is that women are so annoying.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying at the unspoken premise. The concept, the thing where I announce like the series of jokes, is something I only do for the eating bugs bit.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you mean by that for otherwise? Is that
I guess I mean to say, like, like that your friend's jokes, that these guys that like the thing that they don't say is just like, women are horrible. Okay, here's my jokes about that.
Right.
The topic is women are terrible.
There's every joke in every set has. I mean, it all has aesthetic layers of it, where you have, let's say you're telling a surface level joke.
Yeah.
If I'm telling you a joke about like me squishing, I have that joke. I'll do an example.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to build myself up here. I'm just showing how jokes have layers. So I appreciate the comment from before,
very
but
smart,
now we're
Lily,
moving.
too.
What's that?
Very smart, Lily.
What's that? We're smart, Lily. What?
You're about to do something smartly.
Oh, I'm not trying to be like, oh, look at my
mind is open
joke.
wide. I'm ready to get
be
my brain plowed.
Okay, cool.
Hit me, boy.
Here's the concept is just like, lately I've been squishing all the caterpillars that have been in my garden, because I want it to look nice for when the butterflies arrive. I'm glad you like it. And so the aesthetic layers of pretty much any joke, are you gonna have you've got that first layer of like the aesthetics of the actual ideas involved. Me squishing a caterpillar, like caterpillars, butterflies, me in a garden. The surface level, whatever your aesthetic judgment is of that and that vibe.
Yeah.
The secondary layer is that the unspoken concept here being that I'm an idiot. That I'm stupid. I don't know this. I don't know that I'm squishing the caterpillars and they're going to be the And then the third layer is that I'm smart for thinking of all that. Yeah.
Well, what about?
But you're not supposed to know. The third layer is for me to know.
Yeah.
For you to feel, hopefully.
Yeah.
But to me, if the second layer is that I'm smart, you hate me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you? What about people who are trapped? We're in our
like some sort of like labyrinth with a minotaur. Sorry.
Like people who are trapped in their lives.
Sure.
Like we are artists, and in many ways we are like psychotically blessed in that we are surrounded by lovely people who care about the same things that we care about, and that we have like a craft that we're intellectually engaged with. And while whether or not it's financially remunerative, it's basically the best thing that human beings can do, to just sort of like do something over and over again until like you kind of get in the zone with it. And for that to be a kind of like positive and benign thing, like art making. People can get in the zone doing horrible things, obviously. Sure, it feels good at the moment. But and so we have like these like really refined palettes related to like, you know, the things that we care about. And so these things become very important to us. The things that you've described, the joke punching in the right direction, the not just like not being like evil with it. But I sometimes like there are a bunch of people out there who come to our mediums as a way of escaping, and like escaping like a little dissatisfaction. I mean,
they hate their wife and they want that secondary layer to be I hate women or whatever.
Yeah, you know, or just kind of like somebody gets it, or that there's like a joke. It's kind of like a gallows humor about your like dreadful life.
Yes.
And I imagine for that person, like an effete intellectual in New York kind of making really clever confectionery jokes about nothing in particular might just like be like remote and just like a little bit like textureless.
Am I the Safite guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hold on now. Who said I'm a feet?
You're the New York sophisticate.
Who said I'm making confectionaries?
You know, it's like
yeah, no, I know what you mean. I tried it, but the thing is though,
can you touch those people?
Yeah. That's the thing. Those people still find squishing caterpillars funny. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's not like people still find...
I've got just the movie. Keep on going.
Well, I think part of it is that I'm not so confectionary. I'm not so... I have jokes that are... I've got like a joke about like using Pokemon in the Iraq War. Mm-hmm. And there's like these different things that are like... that hopefully do have some flavor or some texture to them that aren't like just like putting a piece of candy in your mouth. Do you know what I mean? Like to push back about your grating insult against my effete confectionery style.
You're going full Andrew Tate mode.
No, I am not in any way feminine whatsoever. Pure masculine energy in every capacity.
The praying mantis are working.
Oh yeah. No. I mean, I do think it is important to I think I do have a femininity in my act that I think is important. And I do like to have a feminine energy in a certain space, and certain ways. There's certain like rich people or purely like maybe like cucked, to use a uncouth word, or in a certain sense, some like really like toothless bullshit that people do sometimes, and I'm like that could still work with certain crowds even. But I hopefully just my jokes about me being a dumb idiot are fun for people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'm thinking
hopefully. Also, the podcast is an hour for the first half. We hit an hour and 5, but we do a second half if you want to keep going.
I'm just talking. You can say that it's a wrap whenever you want to.
You
can just like turn the machine off and I'll keep on talking.
Well, I'm gonna clap and go. We're gonna go to Patreon and then we can just keep going.
Oh, sick.
Okay, so, folks, part 2 is gonna be on Patreon. What you got?
Part 2 is going to be on Patreon.
And before we,
I was gonna make a recommendation
to the people.
To you.
Do you want to save it for Patreon, or do you want to wait a moment? So this is the people on YouTube. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Do I have anything that I want to plug? So, I am working on records, and I am not the star of my records, but there is a project that is going to be coming out over the course of 2023, which is going to be a sequence of pop songs which are in all of these little vernacular styles. I wanted to make songs that cast the musicians in my life in ways that they didn't expect to be cast. That is to say, the sludgy rapper who kind of like raps like MF Doom is kind of crooning on a Fleetwood Mac sounding instrumental. The mopey indie rock person is singing on like a Britney Spears type beat. I am singing on like a country beat, like country western, and it's really kind of like a fun little game of musical. It's a fun little game of musical dress up, and if you follow my Instagram, which is currently mulch.aikens, like Clay Aikens, but mulch, you will be appraised with these things as they come out. They are being mixed. They sound spectacular. If you like Gorillaz, Gwen Stefani, Janet Jackson, Backstreet Boys, like really frivolous, decorated pop music, you might get a kick out of these songs.
Check it out. Hell yeah. Did you say a link or something? You said a band, Mulch Aikens, you said.
It'll be in the show notes.
In the show notes. Folks, part 2 is on Patreon. Also, I'm trying to do more of that like and subscribe type bullshit.
Well, obviously you should like and subscribe. It barely needs to be said.
It barely needs to be said, folks. Part 2.